For over a century, the Whitlock family carried a shadowed legacy that terrified even their closest neighbors. Every firstborn child, without exception, vanished on the night of their 13th birthday. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, and no explanations that could withstand scrutiny. Only locked rooms, broken candles, and windows left open to the cold night air remained as evidence of their disappearance. Perched high on a lonely hill, the Whitlock mansion dominated the skyline of the small town below. Its stone walls, weathered by centuries of harsh winds and unrelenting storms, gave it an appearance that was both regal and forbidding. Long, narrow windows stared outward like watchful eyes, and ivy crept up the facade as if trying to reclaim it from whatever secrets it held within. The Whitlocks were an old family, their lineage stretching back generations. They were known for their rigid traditions, their strict household rules, and an almost obsessive adherence to family rituals that few outsiders ever witnessed. Invitations to the manor were rare, and those who attended described evenings filled with formality but little warmth. Despite the family's wealth and influence, the villagers kept their distance. They spoke of strange sounds that drifted down the hill after midnight, faint singing, soft and melodic, but carrying a note of sorrow that made even the bravest listener quicken their pace. For many, the Whitlock estate wasn't simply a house. It was a place where something watched and waited in the dark. In the 1800s, the Whitlocks were among the wealthiest merchant families in the region. Their trade empire brought them ships, land, and influence, and on the surface, they commanded respect. Yet beneath that admiration lay an unspoken fear. The townsfolk had long noticed a disturbing pattern. Every generation's firstborn child disappeared on their 13th birthday. It was not the kind of tragedy people openly discussed. The Whitlocks themselves never acknowledged the losses publicly. Instead, they hosted small, somber gatherings the evening before each child's 13th birthday. Quiet dinners held behind shuttered windows, with no laughter, no music, and no guests beyond the immediate family. Villagers came to call these occasions farewell dinners, though no one dared say it within earshot of the manor. The children themselves rarely appeared in town in the days leading up to their birthdays, as if being kept inside, hidden from something, or perhaps prepared for it. The first case that the town officially recorded occurred in 1823. Clara Whitlock, the eldest daughter of Edward Whitlock, vanished on the night of her 13th birthday. She had been placed in her bedroom for the evening, the door locked from the outside for her safety, according to later accounts. Yet by morning, Clara was gone. The window in her room, normally barred, was found unlatched. Servants searching the grounds discovered a small trail of footprints in the dew-covered grass below, but they ended abruptly just a few steps away, as though Clara had simply stopped existing mid-stride. There were no signs of a struggle, no torn fabric, no calls for help. More unsettling still were the accounts from household staff who claimed they had heard faint knocking from within the walls during the night. At first, they assumed it was the old mansion settling in the wind. But some said the sound had a pattern: 3 taps, a pause, then 3 more, like someone signaling from the other side. Clara Whitlock's disappearance marked the beginning of a terrifying legacy that stretched across 5 generations. In each case, the circumstances were eerily identical. The firstborn child was placed in a locked bedroom on the night of their 13th birthday, a single candle burning on the bedside table. By morning, the candle had melted down to a stub, the door remained locked from the outside, and the child was gone, without a single sign of forced entry. Younger siblings were never harmed. They grew up under the same roof, seemingly untouched by whatever took the firstborns. Yet even they would later admit that the night of a sibling's 13th birthday was different. Thicker silences, restless winds, and the sound of faint singing just beyond the walls. What makes the pattern even more chilling are fragments found in family diaries. Some entries hinted that the parents expected the disappearances. Rather than frantic searches or pleas for help, the writing spoke of duties, traditions, and the need to let the cycle complete itself. It was as if they believed intervention was not only futile, but forbidden. The inexplicable vanishings gave rise to stories that spread far beyond the village. Some locals believed the Whitlocks were not victims at all but participants in something sinister, that they willingly sacrificed their firstborn children to maintain their vast wealth and influence. According to this theory, The family's fortune was bound by a bargain no one dared name aloud. Others whispered about an ancient curse. Generations ago, the Whitlocks had supposedly wronged someone, a rival family, a scorned servant, or perhaps something less human, and as punishment, the firstborn of each line would be taken to settle an old debt, one child every generation. One account was especially chilling. A priest, summoned by fearful villagers, attempted to bless the estate late one autumn night. He entered with holy water and scripture but fled before dawn, pale and trembling, refusing to speak of what he had encountered. He would only say, "That house is not waiting for God's light. It is waiting for something else." Hidden in the uppermost floor of the Whitlock mansion was a room that few even knew existed. Behind a narrow, dust-choked hallway, a locked door concealed what villagers would later call the forbidden nursery. For decades, it remained sealed, its existence unmentioned in any family records. When the manor was finally explored after the Whitlocks abandoned it, investigators forced the door open and found a chilling sight. A row of tiny beds, their linens yellowed with age, stood neatly against the walls. Ancient toys, wooden blocks, cracked dolls, and hand-sewn animals were scattered across the warped floorboards, frozen in place as if the children who once played there had simply vanished mid-game. But the most disturbing detail was carved into the walls themselves. Faint, uneven scratches formed names that matched those of every firstborn Whitlock child who had disappeared. Some were etched deep, others barely visible, but all bore the same uneven, desperate handwriting, as though done by a child's trembling hand. On a small table sat a music box. Its paint had long since faded, its metal warped, and yet when someone wound its key, it played a haunting melody, soft, slow, and broken by occasional skips. Some explorers swore the tune continued for several seconds, even after they closed the box. In 1901, the Whitlocks attempted what many in town believed was an act of desperation. Margaret Whitlock, the eldest daughter of that generation, was carefully locked inside her bedroom on the night of her 13th birthday. The family claimed it was for her protection, a way to prevent the unseen from taking her as it had taken the others. As the household waited in tense silence, midnight struck. Instead of safety, a faint lullaby drifted through the halls, one that none of the family recognized yet all seemed to know instinctively. Servants described the sound as coming from everywhere at once, filling the walls and vibrating through the floor. Moments later, the heavy bedroom door, which had been bolted from the outside, swung open on its own. Margaret was gone. No footprints, no broken locks, no shattered windows. On her neatly made bed lay only her folded nightdress, as if placed there intentionally, leaving behind not a trace of the girl herself. After Margaret Whitlock's disappearance, the once prominent family left the manor without warning, abandoning everything they owned. Furniture, portraits, and even family heirlooms were left behind, as if the Whitlocks had fled rather than relocated. From that day forward, the hilltop mansion stood as a hollow monument to unanswered questions and a curse no one dared challenge. Locals claim that on certain mist-heavy nights, small, shadowy figures can be seen standing behind the upstairs windows, motionless silhouettes that vanish if anyone approaches. Paranormal investigators who have dared to enter the estate often report capturing faint whispers on their recordings, the most common phrase being a chilling, "It's my turn." Even those who never step inside sometimes leave with unsettling evidence. Visitors have returned to their cars to find the number 13 etched into the dust on their windows, or, more disturbingly, faintly scratched into camera lenses and phone screens. Whether coincidence or something far darker, the Whitlock estate's reputation remains unbroken, a place where the line between history and haunting has never fully faded.